he started out as a teenager playing with the Staple Singers. And
Pop Staples, Memphis.
Yeah. And he tells his own story. You can look him up on his website, but he tells the story how he used to paint in his mustache so he could seem to be a little older, you know.
Well, that seems to be the thing with Chicago, because
is that right?
when I talk to a lot of the musicians who are on Jazz on My Mind currently, we've interviewed and have videos of, like Romley Michael Davis, who played with Earth, Wind and Fire. He tells a story about he was the youngest one, 17, 16 years old, going in to play trumpet at some of these venues. So Nick was doing the same thing.
And I actually did the same thing here in Washington, D.C.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a member, original member of a group called Skip Mahoney and the Casuals. And I was the youngest member. So, you know, I was a guy in clubs. I was in nightclubs when I was like 15 years old. And I used to take my mother's mascara and kind of, you know, darken up my mustache so I could look a little older, you know, while we were doing club dates and whatnot, you know, and we were making records back in the 70s. I was doing the same thing, so that must be a thing that
most musicians. Well, look at what you have achieved and starting at such a young age and performing with a lot of veterans being a young man. Look where it got you, you know.
Well, you know,
today.
that's really something fascinating about my story. As I was telling you, I was director of IT at XM Radio, but being at XM brought my music back to the forefront.
And that's a wonderful thing.
And that is a wonderful thing, because what I did, I took time off, like to raise a family and you know, have children and, you know, send them to college and stuff like that. And then, you know, it was my turn, I guess, to go right back into the music thing and hanging around guys like Nick. And when we talked about the House of Blues, Nick was the one who invited me out there to come play. And going back to that, when you asked me how was that, man, that was a trip, because when I got off the plane, my wife and I, we saw people who came up to me and said, "We heard you were coming. We heard you were coming."
Your reputation preceded you.
Well, working at XM Radio, the disc jockey for, I won't say disc radio personality for Watercolors, actually announced to the country that Alvin Fisher is going to be playing at the House of Blues tonight. So they heard me on AirTran, on the airplane. They heard it on there, and they knew I was coming, and the folks that had satellite radio. So when we walked into the House of Blues, I'm standing there, and I'm introducing myself to the guy, saying I'm here to play. And so I see Michael Manson, who is a premier bassist out of Chicago, who played with Kirk Whalum, and Mike plays with George Duke, matter of fact. Mike waves at me, "Hey, Alvin," you know, and so somebody says to me, "Oh, that's Alvin Fisher. Oh, we've been waiting on you. You're going to have to bring it," you know. So I'm told that I brought it that night.
Well, I understand also you didn't just bring it that night. You brought it at the Pasadena Jazz Festival,
I was out there.
That opened some doors for you.
Sure did.
With Brian Culberson and Rick Braun. Why don't you tell the Jazz on My Mind viewers about that? What happened for you in Pasadena?
Well, that really was my introduction to, and it's amazing because my wife and I were actually going to breakfast that morning in Pasadena. I have a good friend out there, Bubba Jackson, who's a radio personality.
And I got to add, that's how I got turned on to you.
Okay.
Bubba. When Bubba found out I was coming, the Jazz on My Mind was coming to the East Coast, he said, "Richard, you got to look up Alvin Fisher." So Bubba, there's your plug.
Well, I love Bubba.
Everyone loves Bubba.
But Bubba's my brother. That's my family.
There you go.
But anyway, we were out there because Bubba invited us out to the Jazz Festival in Pasadena. So my wife and I were going to breakfast. I'm standing in line. I see these two guys, and they playing, joking with each other, talking about what they were going to do to each other, and I'm watching their shirts. And anyway, we got to talking, and these guys turned out to be Mr. Tony LaBarbera and Mr. Mark Vrabel. They were starting at that time the Smooth Jazz Cruises. They saw my shirt with the XM logo on it, and you know, XM was new, big satellite thing, so we got to talking, and they invited me to come on the cruise
and bring your flute
and bring my flute. So I did. My wife and I said, "Well, why not?" You know. So we went on a few months later. We booked and we went on the cruise, and I had already met Nick once at XM in passing, and Nick ended up being on that cruise along with, it was hosted by Rick Braun.
Okay.
And everybody.
And Rick Braun is such a wonderful musician in his own right.
Oh yeah, yeah, he's a premier trumpet player.
Very good, very
yeah,
good.
very good player indeed. Anyway, they invited me up on stage. Tony LaBarbera and them said, "You got your flute? Well, go on up there then." You know. So of course I had to bring it. You know.
Once again.
You know. So anyway, they invited me from that trip. They invited me back to the second cruise.
And that was hosted by Brian
Culberson, absolutely.
Right.
You know, so then I got to meet Brian, and we did the same thing. We played together and played on stage, and you know, we had there's a lot of videos out there on the internet with us doing that stuff. You know, so yeah, I had a great time with that. Anyway, I've gone now 3 or 4 times, played on those cruises. Yeah.
That's marvelous. I'm telling you, that's quite an exciting story.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, all those guys are now my friends, and that's why I'm getting these great producers to come in now and work on some tunes with me and stuff like that.
There you go.
My wife, I credit my wife with not just Nick Coleon, but my wife as well, because she said, you know, the only thing different about you and those guys is you don't have a CD out. So that's when I put the single out. I heard up.
Behind every good man
is a good woman. That's right.
Well, that's marvelous.
Yeah.
And you've traveled extensively. What happened at the Berks Jazz Festival in Pennsylvania?
That's another.
Tell us about
that's another.
Tell us
venue.
about that.
Well, you know, that's another venue in promoting the jazz cruises and whatnot. Mark Vrabel was there, and we had Nick and a bunch of the guys, Joaquin Joyner, Michael Manson, Scott Ambush from Spiral Gyra. A lot of the guys were there, and we just went on stage and tore that one up too.
Yeah,
you know?
Spiral Gyra was tough in the 70s. The Shaker song.
Oh yeah.
One of my favorites.
One of my favorites too. Gerald Veasley, of course, was there, and Gerald's been on a couple of the cruises as well. Yeah, we went there and we tore that one up too. You know.
Man, that's something. The people that you have met, the names that you're putting out there, that's a tremendous amount of talent.
Yeah, man, it's really a good thing when, you know, I can talk to Norman Brown. I can pick up the phone and call Norman Brown. I can pick up the phone and call Nick. I can pick up the phone and call all these cats, and they've also been a great influence on not just me, but on my son. My son is a jazz guitarist who plays with me. So
and we're going to get a chance to hear you and your son play.
Yeah.
And speaking of your son, I want to bring him on now so that the audience can meet your son as well.
Okay, great.
All right,
great,
all right.
Great.